We've talked a lot about electricity. Hi. Glad you're not like that. We've talked a lot about electricity. What's the most important thing I need you to learn about that? About electricity?
It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts, and don't get yourself killed. Yes. They're corollaries to one another. A healthy respect for electricity is how a young electrician grows to be an old electrician. And the former electrician for the school district very frequently was off on 2 or 3 weeks of disability at a time because he would touch live wires. He never really got it. He just didn't make the connections. There, we'll be polite. A really nice guy, he just didn't make the connection between not having turned the power off and getting shocked later. Remember the relationship, because power, in this case voltage, is current by resistance, current multiplied by resistance, and all of that is power, how much oomph a particular signal has, in this case electrical signal. The same measurements, interestingly enough, are used for radio and other things. That's not part of this class, though. Voltage times current, voltage times resistance. Voltage is current times resistance. It's all interrelated. This is the circle of power, triangle of power. Is that a question?
Circle of power.
And so, let me ask this. Is copper a good conductor? Yes, it has very small resistance. That's why we make wires out of it. That's also why if you have a 9-volt battery in your pocket, you need to make sure it doesn't have your keys in that same pocket or any coins in that pocket, because they'll go across both of the leads and it'll discharge the battery. Well, it'll discharge the battery in the form of heat. And then your pocket gets very hot very quickly. And then if you're lucky, your pocket doesn't catch on fire. We were talking about not killing yourself earlier. I think Merrick reminded us that that was one of the regulations. But you got to be careful. Yeah, if you kill myself, you're going to fail my class. Exactly. Well put. Could I put electricity through the wooden tables? Yes, I could. Give an example of where that happens. Lightning. We talked about that Friday. That lightning has huge amount of current, huge amount of power, huge voltage, huge current. This is enormous. It'll go through wood. It'll burn its way through. Your tree tends to blow up in the process. If you're standing there in the way, you are a much better conductor than a nice dry tree. That can be bad very quickly. And you think I'm joking, but you hear it every year, somebody getting killed by lightning. I think it kills like 12 people a year in the United States. Yeah, and I've known people to get killed by both. Yeah, I knew a guy who got eaten by a shark. I knew a guy who died because he got hit by lightning. They're dead now. We don't get together very often now. Just one of those things. You should have expected it, though. Think about it. It's me. You're right. That's the spirit. In this case, literally. So, thank you. I really don't like adults because they don't like my jokes at all. They just think it's weird, and you guys get me. I love teaching high school. Yeah.
Are you doing the recording?
I'm always recording. So, if you have enough power, you can force electricity through wood. We tend not to do that because it gets messy and it requires incredible amounts of power. But I could, if I wanted to, harness the power of the building. There is enough power here to force a current through this wood table.
Can you go back in time?
Time is fluid.
Well,
So power is, we can do that, but we don't want to generally. Generally, you don't want to be the conductor. But let's talk about that, because you're going to live your life with modern medicine, some of you. Then there's Merrick. What's that?
I wasn't paying attention to the
Yes, I know.
study.
Studying, is that what they call it now? You're going to live your life with modern medicine. Do we ever purposely put electricity through a human body?
Yes.
Yes, we do, quite a bit. Give me a single example.
Electric chair.
They get shocked.
Okay, that's static electricity. That's not standard electricity. I'm talking about plugging you into the wall. Maybe with equipment in between, maybe not. There's legitimate reasons. Do you have one? Yeah. When you're dead and you have the defibrillator. They rub it together, it goes clear, bam! And they shock you. No, you were talking about static electricity. You blow together and bap, you back to your friend. He was better at explaining it then. But yeah, the defibrillator. The idea is that you are an electrical creature. Your heart operates by electricity, or more precisely, your heart is controlled speed-wise by an electrical signal. And what a defibrillator does is it zaps that electrical signal, and it's designed actually to overload your electrical system so that it resets itself. Kind of like a hard reset. And hopefully if it works, and if it does work, you're still alive. If it doesn't work, you're still dead, and nobody really cares. But apparently it hurts a lot if you survive it, and it doesn't hurt a whole lot if you're dead already. Yes?
Is it true? So is it like in a way, are we like machines that we have electricity?
We are electrical in origin, but it's a chemoelectrical system that powers you.
So are we or not in a way like machines?
Yes and no.
Or like highly advanced cyborgs that have moved past.
Hold on. Hang on. I'm going to ask for those. Hold on. Cybernetics is a different point, and we'll come back to that. But I want to cover two other things, and then I'm going to come back to that. So, we could shock someone's heart. You have another example of purposely applying electricity to a person. Electroshock therapy is what it's called. Yes? For medical reasons, not for your silly little research you do on your little brother. Okay, research on his little brother, yes. But no, hold on. Hold on. Electroshock therapy was widely used in the 40s and 50s, the idea being that people who are criminally insane or who are just insane, the theory then was that that was an electrical problem in their brain, and that if they shock the brain enough, they can shock it back into okay, in a similar theory to shocking the heart with defibrillation, where you overwhelm it. The theory is that that's going to work. The problem is that most people who are insane or who have other mental illness, which are not the same and not related, oddly enough, most of that is a chemical imbalance, not an electrical imbalance. Nobody ever teaches you this stuff, do they? See, you got to hang out with me more, because we got lots of good stuff. Okay, so electroshock therapy, while it is still used today, is used very, very rarely today, because in extreme cases and in extremely specific cases, because the vast majority of people who have mental illness, it is a chemical imbalance as opposed to an electrical imbalance. But that's because we know a lot more than we did 50 years ago. And so we don't zap people on purpose, except for his little brother. We don't zap people just because. Hey, you had one. Okay? Tasers, that's one I hadn't thought of. But let's talk about what's happening there. Just like defibrillation, it's actually related to defibrillation, you want to zap somebody's entire system and overload it. In the case of a taser, you're overloading the system, and then that person can't function, they fall down.
Can you revive someone with a taser?
No, the voltages are wrong. Tasers are much lower voltage, and it's much more generally felt. Defibrillation is the voltages are higher, but it's in a very specific. Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. I had not thought of that. I hadn't thought of tasers. That's a really good example here.
Maser. What's the...
No. Maser is chemical.
Oh, maze.
No, not mace. A maser. It's a weapon. Well, sort of. It's a weapon in the same way a taser is a weapon. But that's chemical. That's not related at all to electricity. Okay, what other electricity? Something you might have had some experience with, and no, we're not going to talk about the time you got tased. No, different conversation. For regular standard issue law-abiding citizens, you may end up having a medical procedure with electricity being passed through you. Give me an example. There are several.
ETT. Like ETT. Like EST. Electroshock.
Okay, we talked about electroshock therapy. We're talking about normal people. Yes?
What about like those drinks that say that supposedly have like something like that? From electricity. Yeah, they have like some electricity.
Oh, that's electrolytes. That means salt water.
Oh, that's not like electricity.
No, not related. Salt water will conduct electricity. That's why your body is conductive, is you have salt water. Yes. It's okay. That's why your sweat tastes salty. That's the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. Electrolytes just refers to that salt water. Nobody ever tells them that either. Sheesh. What are they teaching you kids these days that you don't know you're salty? Please save us.
What about those shark fins?
Oh, yeah, like
Same thing as the taser.
it's like a pen.
Right.
Because it's like a practical joke.
Yeah. It's the same as the taser, just a different voltage, a really tiny amperage.
Oh, what about when someone like they're walking around with socks?
Okay, that's static electricity, not related to it. We're talking about medical procedures that a regular person might, okay, not MRI, but you're on the right track. A CAT scan and MRI are the same, but that you'll be attached to this, but you can be attached to these without going through an MRI or a CAT scan.
Electric chair.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about real humans.
They've said that like 10 times. The lie detector.
That head shock.
Don't even deal with that now. I'll come back to that.
Heart monitor.
Okay, I couldn't hear it.
Heart monitor.
A heart monitor. A heart monitor is an electrical device. It actually is reading the electricity of your heart. Now, you're thinking of the little light on your finger, which is actually reading your pulse, your oxygenation of your blood. No, but this is electrical. Your heart monitor, it's called an EEG or EKG. EEG, electroencephalogram. EKG, electrocardiogram. And it depends on what they're looking for as to which one you're getting. And it has probes that you have stuck on your skin. Those will be attached to a machine, and they read your electrical system and can actually send pulses through your electrical system. Okay, we talked about electroshock earlier.
How about the SIU machine to revive you?
Okay, that's the electric. I'll come back to that. Okay, hang on. So in an EKG or an EEG, they're actually reading your body's electrical system. A pacemaker is the next step in an EKG. Yes, a pacemaker They figured out that your heart, which is an electrical device which pumps when electricity is passed over it, the electrical thing is all screwed up. And so they'll give you a pacemaker to do that manually. So that's exactly right. The EKG for regular folks, if there's a problem, you might have a pacemaker. We have a couple of students here who have them. It's fairly typical. What? You're not a big pacemaker fan? It'll keep you alive if you need one. Whether you want to stay alive or not, right? Okay, now, you said something about attaching it to your brain, and that's the last one I wanted to end on. That's why I put you off till now. In the same way electroshock therapy overwhelms the brain, you also can read the brain because it does have electrical impulses that can be read. And they'll put sensors in 1 or 2 or a dozen locations on your head, and they'll read what's going on. If you were to have brain surgery, you actually would do it while awake, and you'd chat with the doctors the whole time. They don't want to kill you, and it's a lot easier to make sure you're alive if you're still talking than if you're not talking. As they're cutting you open, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm not joking about this. I am totally serious. I know, it's a... They'll give you a local, so you don't feel any pain.
Oh, good.
What?
Scary. Like you can feel it as it goes through your head.
Yeah. Now, say that loudly enough everybody can hear it, because that's exactly what.
So like they keep you
Awake.
Keep you awake to talk to the doctor, so like they don't touch one of your nerves that like will make you not be able to talk or be able to breathe or be able to like. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening. That's why they keep you awake during brain surgery if they can. They can't always.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you'll send me the link. If I like it, I'll play it in class tomorrow. Because that sounds weird and great and perfectly logical and totally off the topic at the same time. Which is probably true. There can be all those things at once. Okay, so your body is electrical. You're electrochemical. And you could call yourself a machine or not. Now, you asked about cyborgs. You thought, Salvador, that I was going to forget. First off, we already have people who have machine-assisted bodies. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. So yes, we already have that. People with prosthetic limbs, people with prosthetic ears, people with prosthetic eyes, people with the prostheses exist. Artificial hearts, which really are becoming more supplemental heart pumps because replacing the whole heart has turned out to be kind of not really useful, which is weird, but I don't make the rules. Don't blame this one on me. Kids these days think I'm in charge of all of it, but it's adults. They're weird. I agree. Anyway, so we have prostheses of all sorts. If you can't walk, there are actually exoskeletons to help you walk. Those exist today. Now, how are they powered becomes the next question. Actually, this is a huge question. Yes? Most of them now are powered by a battery that you then somehow recharge. But the theory is that because you are electrical yourself, that your body could recharge that battery. That hasn't been proven yet. But we do know, and the Matrix movies discuss this, where the human is a battery, the human creates electricity. If you've seen the Matrix movies, that's the underlying theory, and it's true. Human beings create electricity and can be harvested theoretically. We don't do it on a general basis because of, well, it gets messy and people are loud. Ethics and all that other stuff. So, yeah, you've seen the movies? Anyway, Could we use the electrical power of a human to recharge the machine, helping that human survive? Theoretically, we could. They can't do it yet, but you will see that in your lifetime. You'll see essentially self-powered cybernetics, where a person's hearing aid or cochlear implant, both of which are cybernetics, where will be powered and the batteries recharged by the person, him or herself. We could theoretically see that for their pacemaker too. I don't know that I would trust that, but only because I don't trust anybody. You know, they're adults. They're not real trustworthy. You know. Anyway, so question or comment? Go ahead.
Mr. Bain, I found out.
Wall-E would take that another step because Wall-E is a machine. Was a machine. I'm not sure the right verb. Deal with it. Wall-E was a machine who somehow was able to power himself or regain power, re-energize somehow. That wasn't really discussed in the movie how he was powered.
Solar power.
Yeah, but you didn't have enough solar coming. You didn't have enough sunshine. Yeah, anyway, but you see, so you have those also. Heck, in a real sense, you're solar powered. I was talking about you being solar powered. Yes, you are. You want me to prove it? Okay. No, it's going to be really simple. What did you have for lunch?
Nothing.
What did you have for breakfast?
Nothing.
What did you have the last time you ate something?
Nothing.
You've never eaten anything.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I had cheese.
Cheez-Its for lunch, okay? Cheez-Its have, actually, oddly enough, some actual cheese in them. I know you never expect that. And they have wheat, and they have vegetable oil, and they'll have salt. Of those, only salt is a naturally occurring element. Cheese comes from cows. You've probably seen cows before in pictures. It's a compound. Deal with it. So your cheese comes from cows, which eat grass, which are solar powered. Your wheat is a grass, which is solar powered. And we power most of our factories with fossil fuels, which are dinosaurs and other gunk that died off and cook for a couple of million years and you get oil. Solar powered.
But we're not solar powered.
Yes, you are. I just proved it. You're powered by plants and oils that are powered by the sun. Chlorophyll. Now, I will admit that you're not solar powered in the same way the school is solar powered or your little pocket calculator. Yeah, we have a solar field to the south of us.
Yeah, for the houses.
No, that whole field is ours.
Why don't they use it?
We do. It's how we power the building.
We don't use people. We kind of do.
Yeah, at night. There's a lot less sun at night. You might have noticed.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
But all that solar comes to the school. Okay. So, let's see, where were we? I want to watch it later. Send me a link. Thank you. Okay, so we have all sorts of stuff going on. We are electrical creatures. Do not electrify yourself in here. There. I've come all the way back full circle to that. And let's move on. Because
We always go for full circle, no matter how distant we go.
I actually have not been off target except for cybernetics, which I hadn't thought of, and tasers, which I should have thought of and didn't. I've been right on topic and right on the amount of time I wanted to spend on it. All right, let's talk about components. And we're going to talk a lot about let's try that again. We're going to talk a lot about this over the next few days, but I want to talk about components. First, motherboards.
Hail the
Motherboard, logic board, system board, same thing. Everything attaches to it. Everything attaches to the board. I remember when we used to have to solder every little piece. If we had RAM, we'd have to solder each piece of RAM onto the boards. It can be kind of fun, but it's really a pain because your wires are so small you're using a magnifying glass to see them. And it's just a pain. And you make any sort of mistake, you have to strip the whole thing off and start over. Yeah, it was not pleasant. Now, to put RAM in, I just pop it in here. Just pop a card on, full of RAM, and then I've got it installed. Because the slots are themselves soldered onto the board of the factory by machine. In that case, yes. The CPU is the brain. It sits underneath this heat sink. This is a heat sink, and I won't take the CPU off right now. I will later on. If I didn't have a heat sink on there, the slot would look like this. This is actually a space where a CPU will reside. I'll set the CPU onto my board here. This happens to be a socket 7, which is fairly common. They look similar. Even the newer ones look very similar to this. That's where the brain will attach. Currently, this board is like the Scarecrow. It doesn't have a brain. Thank you. This is just like the inside of your computer. Yeah, this is an older one that I don't really care about. That's why I'm touching it. But yes, it's the same idea.
Wait, what happens if you touch it?
You'll short it out. This one's old. But they're not that different. And you'll open yours. The only thing you will not do in here is take your CPU and heatsink apart. The CPU goes here, the brain. That silver piece you saw on the other is the heatsink. That's what pulls the heat away from the brain. We'll get to it in a second. And the reason we won't take those off is that to connect them, you use some goop called thermal paste. Thank you. Thermal paste is about 20 bucks a gram. And what its purpose is just to make sure you have a nice even surface and get your heat pulled out evenly. It connects in between the CPU and one of these. This is a heat sink. This one happens to be aluminum, I think, from the feel of it. And this heat sink pulls the heat off of the CPU, and then these fans work like a radiator and dissipate it. The other one that I showed you a second ago actually has a fan on it to then blow that heat away. Yes?
Open it.
You need something that can conduct heat, because you're pulling the heat from under here and you're trying to pull it out to the ends of these fins. You want the fins heated up because you want it to pull the heat from down here to out here, and then you blow it away. So that, yes, for that exact reason, but we want it to do that. I have 2 RAM slots here. I have 5 IDEs. IDE, I think. No, it has 2 RAM slots, and then it has 3 different types of others, but I'm not going to take the time to look at what the expansion ports are, just because I'm not finding it quickly. It's written on the board somewhere. Okay, so there's CPU, your cooling system. You saw this heat sink had a fan attached. Deal with it. The fact that it fell off doesn't mean it's not still attached. So this fan pulls the heat off of the heat sink, off these fins, which itself has pulled the heat off of the CPU. So this fan helps keep the CPU cool. The fan doesn't need to be cooled because it self-cools. Good question. Your cases will have fans in them. As a general rule, a case will have at least one fan that either pulls air in or pushes air out, depending on what you're what the engineers have decided they want it to do. Sometimes you'll have multiple case fans, and in that case, usually one's on one end, one's on the other, and one pulls air in, and the other pushes air out. Yes? If you're using liquid coolant, okay, if you're using liquid coolant, usually it's a mineral oil, because that's easier to use than water. Water's fine. Distilled water is just hard. What you need to do then is to pump your fluid through a radiator of sorts to dissipate the heat. Otherwise, you're just keeping the heat there. You need to pump it out, and that operates just like a fan to make it's the same fluid dynamics that air has. You're pulling a current through. Which is better, liquid or air? Nitrogen. If you really want, just go down to your corner cryogenic stealer and get yourself a canister of nitrogen. That's the best. I prefer dumping it into the thermos because I don't like it to dissipate all at once. I want the thermos to trickle it down. You have to buy the setup. Come on. Your local cryogenic stealer has it, so just go in there. I think you might be able to get it at Fry's, but you can't get liquid nitrogen at Fry's. They're not licensed to sell it to. Be very careful because liquid nitrogen is cold.
And also very deadly.
It's not deadly at all.
Don't drink it.
Well, yeah, if you're not, as long as you're not stupid, it's not deadly. There, how's that? He's acting like an adult more and more. Yes, miss. No, ask. You can't get away with it. You were what? Okay, how could you use a liquid around electricity? Because that's bad, because everybody taught you don't mix water and electricity. Is that kind of where you're going with it? If it's conductive, that's a problem. Water itself, distilled water, completely pure water, is not conductive. But it's the impurities, salts, greases, other things dissolved in the water that make it conductive. And so if you had the purest of pure water, you could operate your computer underwater with no trouble. That's a great question. Nitrogen is a liquid, but it's actually, or liquid nitrogen is a liquid, but it's a gas at room temperature, so it's more just melting off things. Yes? No? Okay. That's why I also, with his example, he wanted mineral oil. Mineral oil is non-conductive. Regular cooking oil is conductive. So your regular Crisco or Pam, that's conductive.
That'll blow up your computer faster than you can.
If it's not, you have conductors like metals. You have non-conductors like wood. You want non-conductor, but you don't want wood necessarily. But you could make a computer out of wood if you want. They're pretty common. Does that help? Okay. Don't be afraid to ask. That was a really good point, because you're right. With regular water, you've always been taught, don't take the toaster into the bathroom while you're taking a bath. You've been taught that.
Unless you have.
Yeah.
Unless you're bathing in distilled water.
No. If you're but even then, if the soap is conductive.
What if you don't put soap in the water?
Okay. Did you just say no one in your house takes a bath? Okay, good, because I wanted to hear something different. What?
I said no one's ever told me not to do that. Take a toaster.
Into the bathtub? Okay. Don't take a toaster into the bathtub. Okay? Thank you. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, the safety things you learned from me, huh? Yeah, I'm not.
I always take toasters.
I know, and you've just been begging fate, tempting fate all this time. Yeah. Yeah, and now you know. All right, let's move on. Cooling systems, ROM and RAM. ROM is read-only memory. It's the instructions that help your computer operate when it first turns on. RAM is where it stores things as you're using it. RAM is kind of like the desktop. It's the stuff you're doing now. One thing about RAM is that when you turn off your machine, it gets erased. RAM will be erased when you turn off your machine. I'm almost done. Storage, yes? RAM usually comes on SIM cards or DIMMs, RAM modules, and it's with more RAM you can do more things at a time on your machine. I'll show you some later. Adapter cards will fit into slots, and this has a couple of different styles of adapter card slots, and they're used to add functionality. You might put a graphics card in, and some of you have the really fancy graphics cards because you're gamers. Yeah, they're great. Those things will fit in adapter slots on your board. Some of them have their own cooling fans. Most of them anymore have their own heat sinks at the very least. Yeah, it can be huge because they generate a lot of heat and eat a lot of power. Storage drives are where you store your stuff. Usually this is a hard drive, sometimes it's an optical drive. If you have, it could be a solid state drive, which is like a flash drive in that there are no moving parts. Otherwise they're very similar. But they store your stuff. RAM gets erased when you turn your power off. Storage drives do not. And of course a whole bunch of cables to plug it all through. All right, last thing before I let you go. Before I finish. A lot of you have been making some really interesting blog posts. I'm not getting on your case about those. But I want to warn you that in order to grade your work, I have to search through each and every one of them. And each and every time you replied to someone else, I have to slog through all of those to find your actual answers. If it was at all inappropriate, please get to that before I do and edit it away so that I don't have to bust you for doing something inappropriate. You understand what I'm saying, don't you? Am I being obvious enough?
Yeah, you.
Okay. Why don't you take some time right now and do that? We will be working on Chapter 1, continuing more tomorrow. Let me pause this recording.